1, 2, ready, and...
Hello and welcome to Cool Coffee with Kansas Principals. By and for school administrators, this podcast aims to promote candid conversation on relevant topics to our great profession. My name is Rick Sola, a middle school principal in Olathe. I am the host, but I am certainly not the feature. Sit back, take a sip, and enjoy. This is Cool Coffee with Kansas Principals. Let's get started. Listeners, fellow educators, principals, and whoever else may have stumbled upon this podcast. This is episode 1 of Cool Coffee with Kansas Principals. So I want to take a moment to set the stage, provide some background and history, as well as a basic introduction of who it is you're listening to and what you can expect from this podcast. And perhaps most interesting to me, how you can contribute to this podcast. First, I want to acknowledge from the beginning this episode will be a little more scripted than the future episodes. You just heard the intro proclaiming the show's feature will be a guest principal each week. There's an exception to that, and that's this episode. There are no featured guests because I want to take a moment to introduce just what it is you're listening to and what is the intended purpose of this podcast. I also hope at the end of this you'll continue listening. My name is Rick Sola. I am principal at Chisholm Trail Middle School in the Olathe School District, having just completed my 4th year in that position. I was principal at Prairie Trail Middle School for 4 years prior to that, also in Olathe. Along with 5 years of a middle school assistant principal experience, the 24-25 school year will be my 14th in administration and my 21st overall in education. I taught 9th grade world history before administration, ironically starting my teaching career at the very school I'm principal at. I'm also the communications director for the KPA, the Kansas Principal Association, thus leading to this new endeavor to feature our school leaders via a podcast. And I'm so excited to get this started. So with that, and what I'm looking forward to with this podcast is to bring principals on to share their story, their insight, their perspective, and to discuss for 20-30 minutes some of the topics that are of interest to the working school administrator. These topics will range from the predictable, like PD-related items, school culture, maybe even some scenarios, to the timely, like welcoming new staff members. What are the priorities that you have as a principal as you welcome your staff back to the building, and even election-related topics. I will note that that is not to say that this show will be politically biased. It's actually important to me that it's not, but politics certainly creep into our role as a building principal. How do we manage that? How do we address situations that may pop up? It's critically important and requires great care. And so these relevant topics are important for this show. And then, of course, I hope to get into what would just be interesting, maybe a personal side of a principal, even random topics like recommending your favorite restaurant in town if we pass through, or tell me you're a principal without telling me you're a principal. And I want every principal who comes onto this show to have the opportunity to brag on their school and brag on their community and their district. And all those things I listed, that's certainly not the limit, however, and that's where you, the listener, comes in. I want your ideas. What's on your mind? What questions would you like addressed or discussed? Do you have someone you'd like to be on this podcast? Or would you yourself like to come onto this podcast and speak with Kansas principals? You can submit thoughts and ideas by going to the notes section of this podcast and clicking on our links to our X and Facebook accounts, or fill out a Google form, which would be really helpful. You can provide your topics and your interest and feedback there, and that'll be really, really helpful as we get this off the ground. In fact, it is your thoughts and feedback that will be critical for this podcast to stay relevant moving forward. This podcast will follow along the traditional school schedule and will, at least at the start, release a new episode every 2 weeks, and we'll take the holidays and breaks off. The only exception to the 2-week timeline will be right at the start. No need to let this intro or pilot linger on its own for a couple weeks. The first normal episode, that is an episode with a guest, will be released Thursday. So spread the word and bookmark, follow, whatever you need to do to watch for that episode to drop. So with that, let me do a quick preview of our first episode. That will be released Thursday. Again, bypassing the 2-week rotation, that will become the norm moving forward. But I visited with the principal of Shawnee Mission South High School, Dr. Todd Dane. You may have seen Dr. Dane's Culture Wins presentation at the KPA conference last November, or even most recently in Nashville, where he presented at Principals United in mid-July 2024. Dr. Dane and I visited about the intentional efforts he makes this time of year to bring in new educators to his building as part of the big Culture Wins umbrella, specifically with those new educators. He shares some of the advice he's received along the way, as well as advice he would give to new administrators. And he spoke a bit about the road he took to the chair he's currently in. Be sure to check it out and hear from the 2023 National Association of Secondary School Principals Principal of the Year, Dr. Todd Dane, again Thursday on this brand new podcast supported by KPA Cool Coffee with Kansas Principals. As a reminder, be sure to check the show notes and share what it is you'd like to have discussed on this podcast or what it is you'd like to have featured on this show. That's it for now. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time. To contact today's guest or the host, go to the notes section of the podcast. Be sure to check back in for our next episode and spread the word about cool coffee with Kansas Principals. Catch you next time.